It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Conversations with Joan. Conversations with Joan will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. And now, here's your host, Joan Herrmann.
Welcome to Conversations with Joan. I'm Joan Herrmann. Thanks for tuning in. Conversations with Joan focuses on topics that are important to your life, from health and wellness to professional development to personal well-being. Changemakers join me to share their insights, tips, and strategies so you can thrive and live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. Now, let's start talking. When focusing on eating for health, our attention turns to addressing the what part of eating. We follow an array of diets, all designed to help us lose weight, increase longevity, and improve our quality of life. But, according to today's guest, Dr. Michael Roizen, we spend little time on the when part of the equation. Dr. Roizen believes that when it comes to nutrition, timing is everything. When we eat is as important as what we eat. He joins us today to discuss when we should eat for optimal health, to minimize stress, and to best manage daily situations. Dr. Roizen is Chief Wellness Officer of the Cleveland Clinic. He's the author of 4 #1 New York Times bestsellers and 9 overall bestsellers. He is a co-author of the new book, What to Eat When. Welcome, Dr. Roizen. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a privilege to be with you, Joan. And of all the shows we've been on, your introduction was by far the best synopsis of the essence of the book. So thank you.
Well, thank you for being here, because I have to tell you, Doctor, I must confess that as a lifelong dieter, and I really thought I was a pro at it, what we're about to discuss is something that I've never paid attention to. So many of the diet and eating plans that we focus on, they tell us what we should eat, but not necessarily when we should eat. So before we get into that, I want to start with the basics. Can you explain our biological clock? What is this, and what does it mean to our daily life?
Well, we have a circadian rhythm, which tells us when to sleep. The goal of the circadian rhythm inside you, it's really just a small group of cells in your brain, 20,000 cells that control your sleep-wake pattern, that control your hormone levels, etc. Out of roughly a trillion cells in your brain, you've got very few of them do this, but they do an awful lot. So the job of that chronobiology, the circadian rhythm, is to get you to do the right thing at the right time. That is to sleep at the right time when the sun goes down and to wake when the blue light of the sun comes up. The same thing happens, and this is the reason you probably haven't heard of this, is it's only 2 or 3 years old at most in humans. There's some animal data dating back about 7 to 10 years, but this is really new science. And that's why you haven't heard about it, because we've just discovered a calorie is not a calorie is not a calorie. That is, when what we were taught in medical school and what we've said all along is that it's calories in versus calories out, but it isn't for weight loss. It turns out that calories in the morning are less in counting than calories in the evening. So 0.8 of a calorie might be 0.8 calories in the morning and 1.2 in the evening for your body. And that's because your insulin is much more effective in the morning, and you become insulin resistant based on hormone changes that occur in the evening. So the goal is to eat 75% of your calories before 2 p.m. That maximizes your metabolism for your health and for weight loss.
And doctor, this is basically the opposite of what most of us do.
Right. So we have a lot of time in the evening to cook dinner, if you will, in the American way. Traditionally, this is what happens, though. In other words, the meals in Europe, even in Germany now, breakfast is a huge meal, and in Spain, lunch is a huge meal, and my favorite study is from lunch. But the way we get around this is that we call it eat dinner for breakfast. So you cook dinner, but you put it in the refrigerator and eat it for breakfast or lunch, so that your biggest meal is at breakfast and lunch. The old phrase is eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, dinner like a pauper. So the point is that you want to eat bigger, and that's traditionally what was done. And the way you can do it, and that's why we have the 31-day plan in the third or second quarter of the book, is how you switch so that you can cook foods that will be, in fact, even more healthy after they've been in a refrigerator overnight.
So, Doctor, I would imagine that would take a little bit of a mindset change, because we've been taught, or it's been ingrained in us, that breakfast is, an omelet or pancakes or cereal or something along those lines, where dinner might be meat and vegetables. So would we literally shift those food items to breakfast?
Exactly. So my favorite dinner is, in fact, salmon burgers or salmon fillet that I've cooked the night before. A mustard-crusted salmon is my favorite. And Dr. Croupain, who worked on the book, is a whole grain pasta salad with walnuts and penne sauce. And again, so you cook it in the evening, whether it's the salmon or the whole grains, and then by eating it in the morning, especially with whole grains, they become a resistant starch, meaning they act much like fiber rather than something that raises your blood sugar. So it's even much healthier to do it that way when they're cold in the morning or at lunchtime.
Dr. Roizen, is it important for us to fast a certain number of hours per day?
Well, the data in animals is pretty convincing. All we have is biomarkers, and let me go and explain what I mean by that in humans. So in animals, if you have a reduced calories by 30 or 35% traditionally, and you put them on a reduced calorie diet, they live about 30% longer. But if you do an intermittent period of fasting, say 15 hours a day, the same markers of aging in the animals go down, or it means you don't look like you're aging as much. And in fact, you still get the lengthening of life, maybe even more, because with that intermittent quality, you start to regenerate your repairing stem cells, those stem cells in your body that help you repair injuries. Now, the data in humans is the same as the animal data from a standpoint of the biomarkers of aging, the inflammatory markers, the blood pressure, the LDL cholesterol, the fasting blood sugar, the insulin levels, etc. So it looks the same in humans. We don't have outcome data because this is too new science. So if you want to do that, you would say, let's only eat when the sun is up. That's one of the rules. Eat only when the sun is up, eat more early, less later, eat dinner for breakfast. And the benefits of that, now, so I stop eating at 7 p.m. and I don't eat till around 10 a.m. By the way, I should tell you there are 3 surprises, and we can talk about that later. 3 surprises when you go on the diet on the Wen way of eating that you don't expect. One of which is you don't feel hungry at night. But in any case, and you do feel hungry in the morning. In any case, the point is that when you do that 15 hours, 12 to 15 hours, you get the benefits, the same anti-aging benefits of reducing your calories without the struggle. So it's really quite easy, and it's a way of hacking your metabolism to maximize your health and weight loss.
So, Dr. Roizen, you just said that there are 3 surprises, the first being you don't feel hungry at night. What are the other 2?
Well, the other 2 is you feel an incredible burst of energy 3 days after you've totally converted, whether it's on the 31-day plan or you decide to do it all at once. 3 days later, all of a sudden you feel more energy. I haven't had this much energy for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And the third surprise, if you will, is that you sleep much better. When you avoid eating after 7 p.m., all of a sudden your sleep is incredibly sound and good.
Doctor, I have a friend who is following a program where she's paying attention to food combinations. What is your philosophy on that? I know some people who won't eat fruit with a meal, or they won't eat potato with a protein. Is that just as important to think about? We
don't have the scientific data that says it is or it isn't. Mm-hmm. it is a trend in a group of people, but in fact the science just isn't there on food combining or food combinations to say it's better or not better. So what we say to our own patients is, if it makes you feel better, do it. But there aren't data yet to say that's healthier or less healthy.
Is it also important for us to pay attention to what we're eating based on what we're experiencing in our life?
Oh, absolutely. So the last half of the book is 30 or more scenarios, such as what to eat when you're hangry or angry and hungry, or what to eat when you're stressed, or what to eat if you want to go on a first date, or what to eat to increase your testosterone level, or to decrease your prostate size, or what to eat if you have hot flashes, or what to eat to increase bone strength. So we have all of those scenarios because there is enough data. So, for example, we left off the data on what to eat if you work the night shift because although there was some animal data, there weren't enough human data to really say this is supported solidly. But there are enough for at least 30 situations, like what to eat to build bone strength or what to eat if you're hangry.
So, generally speaking, for a basic foundation for general health and well-being, what should be eliminated on a daily basis, and what types of food should we be maximizing?
So the food that you want to eliminate is anything processed. So process, because usually they add a lot of ingredients that we don't even know about because they're, quote, food additives. But the basic thing is there are 4 other foods, or 5 if you include trans fat, but those have been eliminated pretty much in the American diet, trans fat. But the others are simple sugars, added syrups, and simple or stripped carbohydrates, stripped of their fiber. And the reason you want to avoid those is they raise your blood sugar too quickly. The other one is foods with saturated fat, not because of the saturated fat, but because they come with amino acids or proteins that change the bacteria inside you to produce inflammation. So the carnitine in red meat, and the lecithin and choline in egg yolks, and in most forms of dairy increase the bacteria inside you, the select group of bacteria inside you that produce a waste product. They take that carnitine and turn it into trimethylamine and butylbutane, which causes over the long term heart attack, stroke, cancer. It decreases your ability to fight cancer or to prevent cancer, and increases kidney disease and dementia. So the reason to avoid that group of foods, the foods with saturated fat, isn't the saturated fat, but is the amino acids that come with most saturated fat. But the key message I want to say is the more you eat food that you cook yourself, and the more you eat it in the morning or early in the day, the better for you.
Doctor, by following your One-Way program, is this a way for us to make lasting change, to finally get off of that hamster wheel?
Well, that's exactly right. Once you change this way, it's not a diet that you go on and off. Although if you go off it for a day, feel free, the sun's going to rise the next day. Go back to eating only when the sun is up. But in fact, this is exactly right. Once you get on this, the people who we've had on it for a long time, as well as Dr. Croupain and myself, the benefits of having more energy, of having sustained weight loss, of not feeling like we want to eat at night, and of sleeping better, stay with you. And so I used to count the number of days I weighed X amount of weight or less, and try and get it over 90%. Now I don't have any problem staying almost at 100% of days that I'm under what I consider my optimal weight, the highest part of my optimal weight range.
Doctor, if you could sum it up, what would be the takeaway message for our listeners?
So, Joan, the takeaway message is that you have a chronology or a circadian rhythm to eating. That means that if you eat only when the sun is up, if you eat more early, and if you eat, if you will, your dinner for breakfast, those things help you hack your metabolic system so that you maximize your health and your weight loss. And it essentially gives you the benefit of intermittent fasting and the benefits of ketosis and weight loss without having to go through the craziness of either of those.
The book is What to Eat When by Drs. Michael Roizen and Michael Crupain. Dr. Roizen, thank you so much for joining us and for explaining why we should be mindful of when we eat in addition to what we eat. By implementing the strategies that you've discussed today and those that are included in your book, we can embark on the journey of the When way to better health. So thank you for being here.
Joan, thank you. What a great interviewer you are. Your listeners are really lucky.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. This is Conversations with Joan. Stay with us. We'll be right back.